Alpha, where we bring you cutting edge conversations while exploring the quantum possibilities. And guess what? We're doing it again tonight. We have a fabulous guest, but before we get started, I want to invite you. Easy for me to say. I want to invite you to our membership community. The membership community is kind of like going backstage after a concert or going to the after party. It's on YouTube, but it's a little more personal, a little more intimate. You get some of the first cutting edge conversations and information. You get special content made just for the community. And it's a place where Augie and I can test out some of the things that we're not ready to air to the general public. So join us. The link is going to be in the chat, and it's also right on the YouTube page. And we're going to be having Zooms for the community where we, hang out together, have questions and answers, talk about topics of your choice. And we want to hear from you. We want to know what you want to hear. So please join us. Augie, please tell us about our very fascinating guest.
Yes, this is going to be fun. We have Marc Dantonio with us. And he is an astronomer. And before I say any more, I want to give you his website, because a lot of people like to surf the websites and visit that while they're listening. So here you go. It is SkyTour Live.com. SkyTourLive.com. And you can, he advertised different times that he's on there doing things, so you can join him. And that will be very interesting, because especially after you know what you're going to hear here shortly. Now, tonight, we're going to talk about life in the universe. Human life, yes, but also maybe alien life that just might not be human. When we go down that path, absolutely everything is possible. Marc has a degree in astronomy, and it is he is the chief photo video analyst for MUFON, which tells me he has seen a lot of interesting pictures and videos. And he is also the host of SkyTour Radio on KGRA. And he's the creator of SkyTour LiveStream with Marc Dantonio. And that is a group of live deep sky telescope observatories on YouTube, where people can see the cosmos and planets through multi-million-dollar telescopes up close and present. Now that will be interesting. I'm going to make sure I can get on one of those. And he has also investigated the evidence of UFO sightings from MUFON, landings, personal contacts, and that is why he is totally convinced that extraterrestrials, they're coming here, they're visiting, probably walking among us. We wouldn't really know, because some of them looks just like us. And they're making contact. People are talking about it, but not everybody is listening. And you will also find him on TV productions like History Channel, Discovery, Discovery Plus, Netflix, and a bunch of other ones. And now, let's have some fun. Welcome to the show, Marc.
Welcome, Marc.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Yeah.
Good to have you. Thanks for saying yes.
When we talk, you're an astronomer. Most astronomers are very rigid in their thinking because they are professionals. I don't think they realize that you can still be a professional and think out of the box. And you're out of the box. That's true. Yeah.
That's very true.
Yeah.
And consider, for instance, like Avi Loeb from Harvard. Okay. I worked with Avi on a couple of shows, and his Galileo project is setting out to look for evidence of extraterrestrial presence in our solar system and beyond. So So yeah, I mean, little by little, rigid academia is coming around to the notion that yes, we're not alone. That they actually will agree with, but whether there are intelligences that have reached us here, that's the big question. That remains the big question, doesn't it?
Mhm.
Yeah. They haven't looked at all the evidence, the kind of stuff that you have seen in pictures and stuff from MUFON. So, but on the other hand, yeah.
Augie, just want to jump in, but even people who have been experiencers have a tendency to talk themselves out of it, because
Yes.
it up until recently, it's not very popular to have had those experiences. So yeah, sorry, Augie, I cut you off.
No, but you're right, Nori. And to your point, I have to say, you're talking to someone who denied the possibilities for a number of years. I had events happen early in life that led me to just deny that it was anything like this, because that's too fantastical to me. I mean, I come from the era of William Shatner as Captain Kirk.
Right.
And to me, that was science fiction. That was make believe, but fun make believe, because I was a science fiction guy in my head.
Yeah.
But that denial is very common. And I think that if everybody on the planet would just look in the mirror and say to themselves, I've had this nagging feeling, I think you'd find that the nagging feeling is one and the same across billions of people.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and now you must have had a special incident or something that triggered you to go off in a path that is a little unusual and end up where you are today, instead of staying in the business world and becoming a millionaire like many do that go to college.
Yeah, you're so right. Augie, what you say is actually very important, and I'll tell you why. When I was a little kid, I was 8 or 9, I think 9 years old, and there was a school field trip, and the field trip was to a pond here in Connecticut, where I live. And the pond trip was to basically look at the wilderness, walk on a forest path, and see the lake, and see the pond, and see the pond life, and so forth. And we're little kids, and it was supposed to be a fun trip. So I remember getting on the bus with my bag lunch, a little brown bag, and I was wearing shorts. It was warm out. I remember getting on the bus, sitting down the little vinyl seat and squeaking the seat. Ha ha ha! Look at me making little noises. I remember getting in the bus. I remember getting off the bus, and then at the pond, and I remember getting back on the bus at the pond, still with my bag lunch in my hand. And I thought, oh, are we not going now? And I said to one of the kids next to me, when are we going to get to the pond? And kids are cruel, you know how they are. And of course, they slap me in the head, say, you idiot, we've been there for the whole day. It was really 4.5 hours, I guess. Mm-hmm. I never remember that to this day. I have no recollection of that time at all. So fast forward about to the time actually when I got home from that trip. My mother said, didn't you eat your bag lunch? And I said, I don't know. And I put it on the table, and she says, well, go out. I'll call you when dinner's ready. So I went out and I played in the empty vacant lot next to the house. And next thing you know, I'm feeling weird, and I fall down and I start having convulsions and seizures. And I'm hitting my head on the dirt in this lot. And I hear that thud of my head hitting the dirt, It's like a sickening thud.
Yeah.
And instead of being panicked, worried, scared, I was looking at the little ants crawling around. And as I'm hitting them with my head, I'm thinking, oh no, I'm hitting the ants. Yeah, I got you, ants. I'm making like a game. And then the guy that was the kid that was playing in the lot with me told my mother that I was having something go wrong, and she called the ambulance, and the ambulance came, put me in the back. And by that point, I was just feeling kind of fatigued, and I had dirt embedded in my forehead. And as I brushed it out, it'd fall in my eyes, And on the way to the hospital, I said to the paramedics, I said, "Hey, can you run the siren?" That's what I wanted to get out of it. Was just I want to hear the siren. Look at me, I'm so important. I get a siren. I mean, I wasn't even connecting the dots about what happened. You know, to me, it wasn't a big deal. I don't know why. We get to the hospital, and of course, the doctors see the big lump on my head, and they see the dirt inside my forehead. And they said, "Oh, he fell. He must have had a concussion." And they, got rid of that, put a bandage on the front of my head, sent me home. And it was another maybe a week later, I looked up in the sky at night, and that's when I realized I'm going to be an astronomer. There's something going on out there, and I want to know what it is. I couldn't shake the feeling that looking at the other stars, that there were other eyes looking back at us, at me, right? I mean, we personalize everything as a kid. I thought, there's got to be other beings looking at me out there.
Yeah.
And that thought never left my head. The one that smashed the ants with the forehead.
Right.
Okay.
Aww.
And I ended up becoming an astronomer from age 9 all the way through college. I got my degree. I went through it and I followed through on what I was going to say. And I never wavered. The only wavering was that I thought maybe I'd go inner space, into oceanography at one point. And then outer space was my favorite. And I'd do inner space if I had to. This space here, not so much, but inner space, outer space, that was my thing. And that led to, being, getting the degree in astronomy and moving forward with an open mind about what could be happening here.
Mm-hmm. What do you think happened?
I
actually have a suspicion.
I have no idea. Yeah. To be honest, I don't. There's no recollection at all. Now, I've since had brain surgery for a growth that was found in my head, and it was taken out. I actually had some kind of weird implant in my sinus, which had to be taken out, which subsequently vanished from the hospital the next night.
Wow.
Yeah, it left pathology and no one ever saw it again.
Mm-hmm.
And that's weird. So I don't know what it means. I don't know what it means. I'm nobody special. I'm not chosen for anything. I'm just existing,
Well, how do you know that you were not chosen for anything? You never really know what happened back there at the pond, or maybe you didn't even go to the pond at all.
I remember getting off the bus at the pond. And then the next thing I know, I'm marching right back on the bus at the pond. Mm-hmm. That's as much as I remember. Now, as far as, but look at my feeling is this. You say, how do I know I wasn't chosen? Well, because I see so many people, in the UFO arena that say, look at me, I'm so special. Follow me, I'm chosen. And it turns me off, right? Because you don't know the motives behind that.
Yeah.
And so I choose not to say that because I honestly don't think there's any proof at all that I am something other than just a human that might have had an unfortunate experience with something.
I got a thought for you though, and the reason I have that thought is because Nori is a hypnotherapist. Maybe one day you'll be ready to go back and find out what did happen.
I've toyed with doing regression, and I'm getting close to wanting to do it. Honestly, I am. You're in Tucson, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And where are you?
West Virginia.
West Virginia. Okay. I was just in Arizona a couple weeks ago. So I go back and forth.
We've interviewed a lot of experiencers, and almost every single one of them said, I'm nobody special. But the thing that we did notice, the trend that I noticed, is that they always seem to pick people that had good hearts. Every person that we interviewed that was an experiencer was like a peaceful soul, or I don't know, just gentle beings.
I understand.
Yeah.
Now think of it this way: what if they weren't gentle beings? Let's say, and the experience subconsciously made them open themselves up and say, "Wow, I don't know everything. I really have to open myself up. And maybe that made them into the gentle beings, right? We don't know, right? Could be one or the
That's
other.
right. We don't know. That's true.
But I think that, and I try to look at all the sides because, we don't want to miss any clues.
Yeah, that's good.
But I think that's a good point you make, that they're, at this point, they're all gentle beings.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. At this point, and they're not looking for fame and fortune. I'm certainly not. I'm not getting it as an astronomer. I can tell you that. Okay. But I mean, we are. We're on a search. It's a mission.
Yes.
And the mission is to show that we're not alone. I think the day that aliens land on the White House lawn and say we're here, then all of us, we'll just go, oh well, we can die now.
Finally,
our mission is
we've
done.
Been waiting.
Right? Yeah. But yeah,
what took you so long?
Yeah, right.
Right.
Talk a little bit also SkyTour LiveStream. What do you do on your show where you actually are looking at the cosmos through those really big telescopes?
Yeah, actually, you said that they're multi-million-dollar. They're not. They're actually multi-thousand-dollar. It's not. We haven't reached that big time yet. I'm looking forward to that actually. But SkyTour LiveStream is a companion to our radio show called SkyTour Radio, and we're on a network where we actually reach a lot of people on Sundays. And it's a 2-hour show. It was 1 hour, but then it got expanded to 2 hours, and that's a regimented every Sunday, 6 to 8 Eastern. Well, we then, I then decided this isn't enough astronomy for me. I've got to do more than this. So as a companion to that radio show, I started an observatory right out there in my front yard. I had a dome on the front lawn. Okay. And people drive by going, what the heck is that? Right. Dome. It was pretty odd looking, So anyway, I ended up doing that for a while, and I did it from inside the dome. I broadcast from inside the dome, and then I realized it's 5 below zero, and I'm going to go out there and do this. I can't do this. So I ended up making it remote, and so I figured out technology to be able to like dial in effectively, call in to my observatory and make a connection and see the screen just like you're seeing yourselves now, kind of like a Zoom call for an observatory is what it is. And I can connect and do everything as if I'm sitting in front of that computer out in the building. Wow. So that was the Connecticut one. And then that expanded because I wanted a West Coast observatory too, one, Western. And that ended up opening up SkyTour LiveStream in Arizona. And now we have this building out there. And to start that one, we needed new equipment. We needed a whole new building. We needed a way to get the roof to come on and off the building. We needed technology. We needed cameras. And it's like, oh, yeah, what are you going to do? So what I ended up doing was starting a GoFundMe. And it's actually been wildly successful. And the GoFundMe paid for the building, the new telescope, the cameras, and an additional amount of equipment. And now we're actually looking at a third site in southeastern Arizona now to go with the other two. So, and this is to bring astronomy to the masses. I don't want to have any excuse for not being able to stream on a night. Because if I have 3 observatories, that's 3 chances, man. Yeah. And if I could, the only thing left is to make a southern hemisphere observatory where we could look at the southern sky too. But so SkyTour LiveStream, people connect and they see it's a very pretty thing. Again, I'm sort of a showman, so the screen looks pretty. It's laid out in a nice way. I'm down in the corner. I'll come up and point out things while we're talking sometimes, and we'll look at galaxies and nebulae and clusters of stars where some of the stars could very well be able to hold planets around them and have planets orbiting them. And we talk about life in the universe. We talk about the different types of chemistry going on in the universe, all at a level that everyone can understand. And that's the key, I mean, when you went through science classes, you undoubtedly had that teacher that would be talking over your head for most of the time, and you're writing notes saying, I don't know what this means, but I'm just writing it down. I'll be darned if that was going to happen So I made sure that when I talk, I explain things in a way that everyone understands, but no one gets left behind, and no one who knows isn't entertained at the same time. So, so there's a little comedy, there's a little seriousness, there's science, right? And so this is a kind of a unique blend. Honestly, there isn't anyone doing this. I mean, I've looked online, there's nobody doing live streams like this from an observatory where like they'll do it on almost every clear night there is. That's just not happening. I think we're the only ones. We caught a meteor hitting the moon.
No way.
Yeah, we did. We saw a meteor, and we're one of 5 people on the planet, the whole planet, that caught a meteor hitting the moon during a lunar eclipse. The moon was blood red, and all of a sudden, pow, right down here in the corner, you saw a white flash of a meteor striking the moon.
Wow.
So it's like, hey, but it goes to show you, the more you look, the more you're likely to see something cool, right?
Exactly.
Just look up.
Yeah.
How many of us don't look up, really? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that's SkyTour LiveStream. It's a basically the community of people that work with us. My co-host on SkyTour LiveStream is a guy from Denver, Colorado, an amateur astronomer who's actually really knowledgeable, and so we complement each other. Mr. Techie Astronomy, Mr. Visual Astronomy. Together we make a whole astronomer, right? A kind of a thing, I guess. But it's kind of cool. And
that's nice.
We don't have we've had maybe in 3 or 4 years of doing this, and like 500 plus videos online, 500 streams that vary from like 2 hours to 5 hours in length. Okay. We've had probably, no lie, 5 bad reviews.
Wow.
And
tell us again how we can see that.
Yeah, it's on YouTube. YouTube, actually you can get there from SkyTourLive.com. That's the portal. And you go in there and you'll see SkyTour LiveStream, and you click on it and it takes you right to the YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Marc Dantonio. I mean, at the beginning, that's what I made it. I didn't know. And people come in and they sit there and they can't wait. I've got music in the background. I've got visuals. So we have a full, I think of it as a full production value. It's like it had to look like a show. Okay. Because I wanted to compete with, TV shows, give you a reason to look at this science rather than watching, ridiculousness or something like that. Right.
Yeah.
What about the science? Like when you have been working with MUFON, I bet you get some pictures coming in, pictures that you analyze and find out there's nothing wrong with this picture and there's no way to explain it away. It is a real thing that sits right there on the picture, and it looks like a UFO, flying disc or a cigar or something.
Yeah, let me address that, because in reality, when we get images, it's literally 99.5% are what I call ordinary objects captured in an extraordinary way. Okay. And so we're looking for that 0.5% that are intriguing to the point. Now, why would that be the case? Well, that's the case because everyone has one of these. Okay. They all take pictures, right? They all have cell phones. So people are recording things all the time that are intriguing looking. And I've spent personally, thousands of hours looking over people's videos they've captured from cell phones. There's some sightings that are really intriguing. Okay. I told you, Augie, about my friend Ben, who had a couple of sightings from airline pilots before we got on. And those are intriguing. Because as an astronomer, my first thought is, okay, is it some kind of astronomical object? Is it a satellite? Is it just a star being mistaken, which has happened actually, or a planet? That's also happened. Okay. But not in this case, because they were moving in the sky and changing, and no ATC, no air traffic control, actually had any idea what they were. All right. For as far in distance as you could see, all the way out there, every ATC along the way had no idea what those things were. That's really impressive, and that is important. So when you see it on visual, I saw the videos, when you see it on the video and then you hear the radios and then you hear the pilots, right? Pilots, let's be clear, pilots are wonderful observers within their scope. There's pilots that every pilot's not an astronomer, for instance. And I know at least one pilot that was fooled by the planet Jupiter and thought that it was following him because it's so bright, all right? And that's okay. They're not expected to be, astronomers. And they care about things that aren't moving in their windscreen when they're looking at it, because those are things that are either heading right for them or going directly away from them. And obviously those things they care about. So when they see things like these lights I was telling you about, that becomes very intriguing to me. What were they? The way they moved in the sky was not like satellites move. I've seen tens of thousands of satellites. In fact, when we take pictures with our SkyTour LiveStream telescopes, 9 times out of 10, we have a Starlink satellite go through, in fact, the observatory uses Starlink, so I can't complain too much about it, right? We have our connection to the world via Starlink now. So yeah, there's a lot of sightings that come in. Most of them are explainable, but then you got that small little group, like these airline pilots I told you about, like these flashing lights that were just seen the other day on the ground by multiple pilots that are unexplainable. So that's what keeps us going, isn't it?
How do you explain the unexplainable, though? I mean, are there trends in the unexplainable, or what makes you believe that they're out there?
Let's talk about that. That's a really good point. What makes me believe goes back to how life evolved on our planet. It goes back to my book, The Populated Universe. And this wasn't just a plug for the book. I'm trying to just be fair with how I came across this in my mind. We're carbon-based beings. We are bilaterally symmetric, same on one side as the other, okay? And the way we interact with our world is through symmetry. Every single life form on the planet is based on some form of symmetry. Tulips, radial symmetry, right? We're bilateral symmetry. Well, that carries through for all life forms, and all life forms also have what? DNA. So that's an important factor. The DNA is probably why we're the same on one side versus the other overall. But if you think about it, that is, to me, and this is something I came to this conclusion, and it's actually the reason I wrote the book. I think that's a template provided by the universe for carbon-based life. And the reason is because we have to look at the abundances of elements in the universe. Go back to astronomy for a second. Hydrogen's number 1, helium's number 2. Guess what number 3 is? Oxygen. And number 4, carbon. So you can expect to see a lot of carbon and oxygen in the universe, and we do. And life forms made of this little carbon atom, okay, are probably going to be prevalent throughout the universe. Not in the same exact ways as here, but prevalent nonetheless. Because on our planet, the life forms that came to be on our planet are the consequence of 5 major extinction events, okay, where life was almost depleted from the planet back in the Permian period over 250 million years ago. And then with the what they call a KT boundary event, the Chicxulub asteroid that struck, and the one that supposedly killed the dinosaurs, right? Well, those events were 2 of the main extinction events that people know about. There was a few others, but if you think about it, the life forms changed as a result of all those extinction events and became something that they weren't before. And we rose out of the muck, basically, after the dinosaurs were rendered extinct, right? We filled a niche that was emptied as hominids, right? Lucy, Australopithecus afarensis, was a tiny little 4-foot bipedal, walking on 2 legs monkey creature in Africa, right? In the Olduvai Gorge area, I think. And these creatures ended up becoming what we call humans over time. And I know there's argument and missing links, so to speak, which may have been found, by the way, but that's another story. But the fact is that, we're we're in a universe where carbon seems to be it. And I tell people I'm a carbon bigot. Yep. All right. I'm prejudiced toward carbon. Okay. All right. I don't think there could be silicon-based life. You've heard that before. Well, what if it's based on silicon? Well, silicon is the next element down below carbon. And that column in the periodic table, those are the elements that are most like each other that could support this kind of thing, life. So right under carbon is silicon. That'd be the next best. But silicon makes really robust bonds. It likes to make crystalline lattices. Sand. Sand is silicon dioxide. It's silicon with 2 oxygens. So just for the record, when you're walking on a beach, you're actually walking on oxygen, which is a gas, right? Isn't that weird? 2 oxygens and 1 silicon atom. So it's kind of gas. That's kind of fun. But the bottom line is that silicon is too robust and not flexible enough for all the many things that life requires. Carbon can make bonds and break bonds like no tomorrow. It bonds with more things than any other element in the periodic table. Yeah. And that makes it fundamental, and that makes it foundational to life. So I think if there's life in the universe, it's going to be like us, which is why they're here, right? Because carbon beings also need that third most abundant element I told you about, oxygen. Carbon-based beings need to breathe, right? Aki, right? And if they need to breathe, then it means that if you're going to be a carbon-based being and you're looking for planets, aren't you going to look for oxygen in an atmosphere of a planet? We're doing it now. Yeah. With the James Webb, we're looking for indirect evidence of oxygen. Okay. Well, an advanced species, 1,000 or 10,000 or even 1 million years ahead of us, probably has that science down pretty well by now. And so they're looking for oxygen. And you know what? We stand out like a sore thumb because we started building oxygen in our atmosphere over 2.5 billion years ago. So when Stephen Hawking said, we should just hide, keep down low to stay away from the aliens and hide down here, just, stay down here and hide. Well, he might have said that, but the problem was that we had already blown our cover. When oxygen started building up over 2.5 billion years ago, we weren't even a thought process. But those phytoplankton, the single cell algae, were generating all this oxygen, and it was being replenished. Oxygen loves to bond with stuff, right? And go into rocks and iron. That's why Mars is red. It rusted. Okay. But when you look at everything else, I'm telling you, okay, oxygen will stand out like a sore thumb and make us an attractive target. And that's why they're here.
That's brilliant.
It's my thought. I think that's true.
I like it.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned your book a little bit earlier also. What are the stuff you write about in the book? Mention a little bit about that.
Oh, sure. Here's the thing with the book, like I said, I talk about what I just talked about with the carbon-based beings and talk about the bilateral symmetry and the other types of symmetry in life. And again, it's all written for a lay person so that they don't have to be a scientist to read it, kind of a thing. And the premise of the book is that life in the universe is the rule, not the exception. Okay. Because you know how you're always saying, well, life here is the exception, not the rule, right? Well, actually, I think it's exactly the opposite. Now, the book got its name after an argument that I had with the director of the observatory where I was getting my degree at the university. And I said to him, I think it's a populated universe. I said those words back in 1982. Yeah. Okay. Wow. When I was getting my degree. That's a while ago, right? And
controversial.
Yeah, it was very, because to that point, no planets have been really discovered and identified with confirmations. And I said, it's a populated universe. Look at us. We're bilaterally symmetric carbon, blah, blah, blah. And he looked at me and he had glasses and suspenders and he would just do this. And he was rolling his eyes and I said, no, don't you think so? I think that's the nature of the universe. It's a populated universe. After all, we're here. Countless life forms have come and gone in this cauldron that we call the Earth that's trying to kill us every which way with tornadoes and earthquakes and fires and tsunamis. We have all these things going against us, yet we persist. I think it's happened elsewhere, is what I told him. And he just looked at me over the top of his glasses, okay, with his suspenders. And he goes, Mr. Dantonio, get back in the observatory, get back on your project, and leave Captain Kirk to us.
Aw.
And I laughed. And then 1988 rolls around, and I go back because we had one confirmed planet, and he's on the phone. I lean in. Now, we hadn't talked about this because I was out of the university in 83. Okay. And in 88, when I went back 5 years later, I lean in and I'm smiling. He's on the phone. It's as if no time had passed. He covers the phone. He goes, "It was only one planet." He knew I was coming.
I love it.
Right? Yeah, right. So you see, and so the book takes the reader through that genesis of life here on Earth and how it occurred, and why it would be commonplace, I think, in the universe. It's a template provided by the universe, and the book makes that premise clear.
Interesting.
That makes sense.
Is your book on Amazon?
Yeah, it's on
your website?
Amazon.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on Amazon worldwide, I guess. It's in 3 formats. I have the Kindle edition, I have a black and white edition, and the other one that says see other formats to see it. That one's the 8.5 by 11 size with all full color images, many of which I did myself because I've also been an artist for years. So I do space art things, and I actually put a bunch of the things that are pertinent to the book in there as well. So especially talking about other stars and planets around other stars. So pretty cool.
Now, I remember reading something quite a long time ago. That was in 1989. There were an article in 3 different newspapers. And that article said that there was 2 observatories that confirmed the same thing. And that is that there's a huge planetary object at the edge of our solar system, and we don't know what it is. It was bigger than Earth, 5-6 times bigger, I think they said, they thought, because of the amount of light that it reflected. And have you read anything about this? And I got a sneaky suspicion this correlates to Nibiru.
Oh, well, as far as we'll tackle the Nibiru concept in a bit, but as far as the object at the edge of the solar system, there has been talk about a planet 9. Okay, personally, planet 9 is Pluto. Let's be fair. They demoted it well before its time. Okay, I met Clyde Tombaugh, who was the guy who found Pluto. He was a tiny old guy when I met him, and he was being cautious about it as well, you know. But they've been talking about a 10th planet, if you will, Planet X, the Greek 10, right? And I know that they feel that there's something out there that's perturbing the outer planets, you know, disturbing their orbits a little bit.
Yep.
But if it was anything the size of the Earth, that disturbance would be a lot greater than it actually is. So it's not certain what might be out there. And you're right, we don't know what's out there. Now, our solar system is a really strange place, as it turns out, because the outer limits of our solar system actually go almost halfway out to Alpha Centauri. Now, Alpha Centauri is 4 light years away. The actual environment of our solar system reaches out almost 2 light years. That's amazing. There's objects out there that are somewhat gravitationally bound to the sun from that far out. And we have our solar system out to, say, Pluto, and then we have another belt of icy objects out there called the Kuiper belt. All right, and then we have an Oort belt, O-O-R-T, out there, and then we have an Oort cloud that's around our entire solar system, and that Oort cloud extends way, way farther out than anyone ever thought. And so we have a lot of learning to do about our solar system, but we certainly haven't seen every object in our solar system, not in the slightest. And so if there's a 10th planet out there, I wouldn't think it's the size of the Earth, but I would think it could be pretty sizable, you know. We found a few, you know, there's Sedna and Keor, and there's a bunch of others out there. So make. So I mean, we've got another a bunch of these minor planet-sized things that are out there. Minor planets are objects that are not quite planets but are smaller. They demoted Pluto to being a minor planet, a dwarf planet, basically. So anyway, I think that it remains to be seen, but my mind is open, because the evidence is there that there's something there. Just don't know how massive it is.
So if there were other beings elsewhere, where would they be? Where do you think they are?
Well,
where do they live?
You might remember the famous, where are they line, right? I mean, if they're here, where are they, right? The Fermi paradox. That was, by the way, wrongly attributed to Enrico Fermi. He didn't actually say it exactly as it came out. He was actually talking to a bunch of scientists at lunch, and they together mused about this. It wasn't just Enrico Fermi. Well, anyway, where are they? Well, the question is, let's look at how we handle things on Earth. This is my answer. When we go looking at a new species, do we charge right in and say, hey, we're here. What you doing? Come here, you. I got to talk to you. I got to test you. Do we do that? No. We'll take a straggler and we'll tranquilize them. And then we'll tag them with a radio collar, big old thing around their neck, right? And let them go. And then track them. Well, we're pretty smart. I think I'd notice a radio collar around my neck, right?
Yeah.
So obviously, that's not going to be a good way to track us. So if they're here, they're going to be very surreptitious about it, because yes, they're superior, but you know what? We're superior to ants, but ants can kill you if enough of them mass along and sting you. There are certain ants, like the fire ant, that can just take you out, right? They're not as smart as people, but together they act in a way that can be disastrous to you. Well, in the same way, alien life is the minority here. They know that we can hurt them. They know that we probably would. Okay. Yeah. So they're going to be very cautious about interacting. They're going to pick off one at a time, pick us off. And for what purpose? Well, what do we do when we track elk in the Yukon? We tag them for what reason? Well, we want to learn migration patterns. We want to learn this, we want to learn that. What are their eating habits? Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Because the scientists are doing this. Well, I think alien race that's here is primarily going to be scientific based. They're going to be not here scouting for water to come in here and eat all of our brains. Okay.
Right.
They don't need those resources. They've long since gotten past that. If they can go interstellar, they don't need resources. Okay. They're long past that. But they do want to learn possibly about our planet. Well, for what purpose? Well, maybe to join us, maybe to cohabitate the planet with us, and they'd have to do it in a quiet way, wouldn't they? They can't just say, hi, I'm an alien. Do you have any of those weird fried maggots over there? I like those. It's like, certainly that wouldn't work. So they would be doing everything surreptitiously and under the radar. They would stay below the radar, because that's how they'll survive. Right? So they're probably here. Now you say, well, where in particular are they? They could be walking among us. Augie, I think you said that earlier. They could be among us. Yeah. Or maybe you did, Nori. I'm not sure. But either way, they could be. But I also think that they're going to be someplace where we are not. And there's one major location on our planet where we are not. And that's in our oceans. So you did, didn't you?
I knew it.
They could be in our oceans. And I think that it's an age-old theory, an age-old idea that maybe intelligent species that came from other worlds live under the waters, where for them, the water isn't a big deal. When I did these lectures around the country about this way in which UFOs could operate for real, using real physics, I really discovered that they wouldn't have to actually be solid objects down there. They could be kind of interdimensional. And that's part of where we're going as a civilization, looking for that very thing. Well, the bottom line is, if they're in the water, then that's where we are not. Oh, yes, we have a few submarines out there.
Right.
Yeah, but
certainly doesn't. It's not a freeway.
You had an experience underwater that we talked about before. Could you mention something on that in the U-boat?
Yeah, in the submarine. Yeah, I do work for the Navy, and there was a time when I was asked if I wanted to go to sea on a submarine. Again, as an observer, I wasn't, part of the Navy, never have been, wanted to be, but they wouldn't take me. Medical thing, whatever. And as I mentioned, it was the most fun I had being seasick. Okay, but I ended up sitting in the sonar area where there's 4 screens in this particular boat. And I sat next to the active sonar operator who was over here working his sonar. And I was just like this, oh, let my nausea go away, please. I just want to enjoy some aspects of this trip. I'm having a great time. Most fun I had being sick, but let me tell you, I want it to go away. And I started to drift off and just started to, the boat's very noisy. It's not quiet. People think submarines are so quiet on the outside, but on the inside, you're hearing people talking. It's loud. You can't hear yourself think in a submarine. All right. So anyway, it just doesn't get out. I'm almost drifting off, and all of a sudden the guy in the sonar yells, con sonar, fast mover, fast mover. I'm like, what? Fast mover? Is that a torpedo? We're going to die? Why did I come on this trip? Oh, I shouldn't have. I'm going to die out here. That's what I thought. And the executive officer just kind of wanders around the corner, and he looks down. He goes, what do you got? And the kid in the sonar is looking away from me, talking to him up here. He was looking back at me, and I hear him say some things about the bearing and the range of the object. And he says, wow, how fast is that going? And the kid looks back, does a calculation or whatever. And then he spreads his arms out like this. Now, as I mentioned, sonar guys are supposed to know what everything is that they see on their sonar. They're not supposed to have an unknown. They have to have boxes for everything.
Yep.
This kid had nothing because he went like this. When asked the speed, he's telling the XO here, and he was loud. I heard this plain as day. He went, several hundred knots, sir. Several hundred knots, sir. Wow.
That's 460 miles an hour.
And hundreds of miles an hour, right? And this is underwater. Nothing we have goes that fast. Nothing. No, I'm sorry. Nothing that we even have in Black World goes that fast at the moment, right?
No.
We're looking at hypersonic stuff, but that's still a ways off, contrary to popular belief, for the water. So this guy just looks down, doesn't miss a beat, and just says to the kid, okay, log it and dog it. And the kid said, sir, yes, sir. Turned back to his console and just went on as if nothing happened. I'm like, no. I get up and I walk over. I'm a big shot. Don't you get it? I'm a big shot. I was invited onto this sub. I'm somebody, right? I walk up to this executive officer and I say, oh, sir, excuse me, Mr. Big Shot that I am. I said, I'm familiar with these fast movers. Is there something I can help you with? He looks at me and he goes, Antonio, right? Oh, yes, sir. He goes, you having a good trip so far? Yes, sir, I am. Let's keep it that way. He turns and walks away. So I was like, okay, I'll just go over here and hide. So Mr. Big Shot here was no shot. Let me tell you, I was nothing. And then, and obviously I tell that story because that was me being brought down a couple of pegs and rightfully so. So a couple of years later, I had to do a job for the Joint Chiefs in Washington, D.C. This is, the guys that run the armed forces. Yeah. And I had to do a job for these guys, and I did it, and I brought it down. It was a project that I couldn't talk about, couldn't tell anybody about. I had to drive it down myself. And the worst part was I couldn't even stop to go to the bathroom, for instance, because I would have to leave it, and I couldn't. So it was big enough that I couldn't take it out of the car with me. Anyway, as I'm driving it down, I finally get there. And the first thing I do, of course, is take care of essentials. And then I go and I talk to one of the chiefs. And I said, Chief, what can you tell me about the fast mover program? And in my head, I was saying, don't ask it, don't ask it, don't ask it, don't ask it. Because it's like, this is probably bad territory. You're going to ruin some relationships here. And contrary to that thought, he looked at me and he could have said, I have no idea what you're talking about, or I got to go. I'll see you later. He didn't do that. He said, I'm sorry, Mark, I can't talk about that program. I'm sorry, I can't talk about that program.
It
Well,
exists.
It exists. It exists. And if I hadn't gone to the men's room earlier, I would have gone right then and there. I can promise you, because I lost all control of every bit of me when that happened. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. And I drove back from Washington like this in a daze, like not able to even think, oh, look, a truck. Whoops, bridge. And I was in a daze. And that's when I knew that the truth, and that is that, and it's not just our Navy, and I'll tell you why I started talking about it at all. It's not just our Navy, it's a lot of navies. But the truth is that they're out there, they're in the oceans, they're doing things that we cannot touch, we can't get near. They know they're there, they log it, and they dog it, just like this officer said. They log that it happened, and then just stick it in the file because we can't touch it. They're not hurting us, they're not threatening us, so we're just going to coexist. That's basically what the approach is with the armed forces. Yep.
Fascinating. I love the idea of them being underwater for personal reasons.
Well, keep in mind that USOs, unknown submerged objects, have been reported for a long, long time. Do you know when the first incident of a potential USO was? 5,000 years ago.
No way.
In the Kimberley region of Australia, because there was an Aboriginal group, and they believe that these sky people called the Wandjina came from the sky, lived under the water, and had full mastery of the water. And the Wandjina myth goes on to say that two boys were torturing an owl to death, and it enraged the Wandjina, who then sent a tsunami to wipe out their village. Wow. Now, could that just be myth? Sure. Could that just be a fanciful storytelling over and over? Yeah, of course.
Could it be true?
But it could be true. That's right. Yep. And how many times have you heard people describe an owl looking at them instead of a gray alien? I see. That's the screen memory that sometimes gets put in place of the alien. It potentially is an owl. And the big eyes, the no real face in that shape. Okay. And people look at the owl and think that must have been what I saw. Yeah. In fact, it may not have been what they saw. They may have seen an alien species, a biological robot is what I think the grays are. How about that? If they exist, that's what they are.
Yeah. And something moving under the water at 700 knots or like 480 miles an hour. That's not our technology, not as we know, at least. And everybody's asking for disclosure, but that has been done. Let me just do a little, I'm going to read a quote here because even the Russian President Medvedev, after an interview, he was on camera when he was asked, what can you tell us about the UFOs? And he says, oh yeah, sure. When we take the office, he said, right on camera, he said, we get the dossier that explains the UFOs and the extraterrestrial presence, but we can't talk about it. We are told that we are afraid of panic. That was right on camera. I've seen it. But on the other hand, we have our own disclosure, and that was Joseph F. Bloomerich, was a leading engineer at the Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama. He studied for 18 months all of the strange pictures and videos from NASA and the Russian Space Agency. And he made a statement. And that statement was, and I quote, the moon and Earth are and have been visited on a regular basis by extraterrestrial beings. So if that statement comes from NASA, that was a form of disclosure, but nobody knows and nobody thinks to talk about it.
I think that the problem with all of that is that there's really no you can't follow a chain of directives that actually lead to the source material for that. And you can't say, okay, I can make my own decision by looking at this source material myself. What did they see? Well, you don't really know. What did they read? Well, you're not really quite sure. And that's part of the problem, is that this whole arena has been shrouded by military need to know as well. And that makes a lot of these things that should be common knowledge not common knowledge. And it's really difficult. In fact, I was party to one thing that was an absolute travesty that I actually unearthed, that the military was trying to foist off on ordinary people out in Idaho. And there was there's a deep water lake there where they do testing of Navy vehicles. I was tasked with actually building some really accurate models of this entire lake bottom facility. There's a base there underwater, 1,160 feet down. And this thing that I built showed everything, all the components and everything. And they were testing this piece of hardware there that actually would come out of a submarine and open up its wings, come to the surface, take off from the water like an airplane, fly around, do a reconnaissance photographic mission, come back, glide onto the water, close up its wings, sink back down, and go back into the missile tube of the submarine and go home. Okay. It was called Project Cormorant, like the bird. Yeah. And we built the bird. We built the models of the birdie for the engineering people. And I started getting phone calls when this was being tested at the lake in Idaho. And the phone calls were, hey, there's a UFO flap going on at the lake out in Idaho, out in Bayview. I'm going to send you some video and some pictures. And they sent pictures, and the pictures were, oh, Jesus, the bird. Okay. They caught this Navy. I could clearly see it was looking malevolent. It had these wings that were really strange looking, pointy thing with an open maw. It looked frightening, right? Well, anyway, I called the program office down in Washington, and I said, hey, you guys, your birdie is being photographed. What are you going to do about this? Why are they photographing it? Well, they're trying to say it looks like a UFO. Good. Let them think it's a UFO. No. Let me tell you how that will go. Today, a guy takes a picture. I got a UFO, and you stay quiet. You say nothing. They're going to say, it is a UFO. Let's get another photographer. And then that photographer will say, let's get two more. And by the end of the week, you can have 50 to 100 people taking pictures of your birdie doing something you may not want them to see it do. Mm-hmm. And I got like
nothing.
And then a few seconds later, he went, all right, I'll get you a statement. and about a week later, I got this written statement, which I was able to copy and forward out to the people that were seeing this. And as soon as they saw that it was one of ours, just an advanced vehicle being tested, they were like, oh, and they went home. Wow. You know, so you see, the military uses this to their benefit sometimes, and they have in the past, and they will in the future. You can't deny that. You know, sad.
That's fascinating. Yeah. We have 1 minute left. Oh my goodness. I just was so wrapped by this conversation.
I had a good time. You guys are fantastic. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed the show.
So good. Augie, do you want to ask him your famous question?
Yeah, tell us one more time where they can get your book and where they can watch you.
Okay, sure. The book is available on Amazon. It's The Populated Universe. Comes in 3 formats. And you can find us at SkyTourLive.com. SkyTourLive.com. That's the portal into our live deep sky observatory, where when we stream on most clear nights, and we will show you deep sky wonders like never before. And you learn about it too, because I narrate and teach people about astronomy as we go and about the things you're looking at. Mm-hmm. Galaxies, nebulae, clusters, strange UFOs that sometimes appear in our imagery, which do.
Yeah, that sounds good. All right. Well, I do have one question that I love to ask people, and that is.
Okay, what is it?
If you could talk to the whole world and the world was listening, what would you tell them?
I would tell them to look up.
That's great.
That's what I would tell them. Simple. 2 words. Look up.
Yeah.
Don't let this take your attention away. Look up, because you might actually see something.
So good. So good.
And when you do see something, it changes your life.
Mhm.
Trust me. I know. You're absolutely right.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah. And beyond that, get your hands on a 4th generation night vision goggles and then look up at night and you'll see.
Yes, I actually have in this box. I have a night vision system from Psionics. And it's a full color system that you can pick up for $400.
Oh.
And it's beautiful. You just look up in
Wow.
the sky and see the sky like you've never seen it before. Yep. Yeah.
Wow.
Neato.
Very
Yeah.
neat.
And
Yeah.
you see ships, you see lights moving and making turns that it shouldn't do sometimes.
That's what people say. I haven't been lucky enough to see that yet, but yep, that's what they say.
Yes. Okay, well, thank you very much for being with us. This was fun.
Thank you, Marc. Yeah,
Thank
it
you.
was
I'm
great.
honored. Thank you so much. It was a lot of fun, guys. Thank you.
It's awesome. All right, guys, we'll see you next week. Much love, everybody. Augie, see you later.